Okay, so we have a new video from Depressed Nasagi, the State of Holostars. So I'm quite interested in this topic, as a male myself. I definitely am I'm intrigued in like the whole aspect of the male VTubing sphere and the male VTubing what ecosystem. I don't know what you call it, but I think it's definitely worth another check-in, another look at Holostars as Armus has debuted, because I definitely think Holostars is going in the right direction at the moment. I think Armus is definitely a sign for hopefully good things to come with Holostars. But let's see what Depressed Nasagi has to say on the topic, and I'll interject my own opinions as well.
For what reason would an agency like Hololive, who started up as an originally idol-themed VTuber agency, decide to make a branch for male VTubers but not appeal to the usual demographic that male idols appeal to, that being the female equivalent of an idol fan? And why would they not brand them as such? How and why did Nijisanji, a general and variety content themed VTuber agency, appeal to the female demographic first before Hololive, or at least their EN branch? See, for the longest time, Hololive has sold itself as a female-centered agency that primarily caters to male idol fans. It's a niche and a unique spin of the VTuber formula that was fresh at the time. And while they did find their relative success, Yago decided to want a male branch of their VTuber agency named Holostars. But first, let me recount the history of the branch.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I think just from a business standpoint, I do think it just feels like a natural progression. I think just like to have like a male wave also. I just like a male group or wave, whatever. I just think it kind of feels like a natural progression, because naturally with these kinds of agencies, right, and these kinds of it's the same thing of like when you think about like K-pop, when you think of like the music industry, what do these like labels want? They want to appeal to as large of an audience as possible. That's why if you're a music label, you possibly you sign artists of maybe different genres, because you're trying to cater to as many different audiences as you can, and you're trying to get an ecosystem, have as big of an audience as you possibly can. So I think just from like a business standpoint, I just like think naturally it makes sense to want to try and invest in a market that could have potential, right? That could work out into something. But I think it's still, to this day, I think it still kind of says something. I think it still says something though. The fact that with the state of a male VTubing is that it's still a risk. To this day, it's still a risk, because how many small VTuber agencies, or like small VTuber agencies, do you see actually getting males? None. I don't see like, well, obviously not like zero, but I mean most of them only want females, or they start off with females and maybe they get some traction and then they put out a male generation, right? It's never like starting off with males, or a lot of the time these agencies will straight up say, we aren't interested in males at this moment, because it is still a gamble to get males. It's still a less of a guarantee, in the sense of like, it's like sort of a safety net, in a sense of like when you get female talents and female VTubers in your agency, it feels like, oh, there's more of a likeliness that they're going to do well. Not saying that, obviously male VTubers can't do well, won't do well. Obviously, it's not true that they will like absolutely fail, but it's just naturally with the kind of ecosystem we are in a mainly female-dominated industry, it makes sense that you want to sign females more than males because there's more of a chance that you could, that it could work out. It's the same thing in terms of like the flesh, I don't know what you call the fleshy streamer industry, just regular streaming, right? Regular streaming is male dominated, and females aren't as successful. It's harder when you're a female streamer, a face cam female streamer, to succeed because it's a male dominated industry. Twitch is male dominated. There's obviously those outliers like Pokimane, but it's mostly male dominated, and it's sort of that same sort of thing. It's like when you're in an industry that is dominated by male or females or whatever, it's actively harder for you to break out and for you to succeed. And that is why I think that's why some more agencies don't sign males or don't have male generations.
It was originally Motowagi Tanigo's personal project, and when they first launched, it probably did not feel the best when they were utterly rejected by the community. The first Holostars members were absolutely terrified.
So sad.
To say that they faced opposition was an understatement. A lot of Hololive fans were concerned about their presence. Concerned is probably also an understatement. Some of them were downright against it. Though, for the most part, they were placated by the fact that Holostars was in...
Who is this? Is this somebody who also graduated early on?
...entirely separated from the branch. They were segregated, and that meant the chances of them interacting or bothering in the affairs of the Hololive girls were quite low. A sentiment that actually carried over to the EN side of things. In any case, this opposition nearly made the boys give up, if not for their manager at the time, Shinove, and Yago himself personally seeing to their mental health and abilities, playing games with them on stream, pep-talking. The Holostars boys are quite loyal to the CEO, and that's for good reason.
Yeah.
He was very much hands-on until he eventually had to stop being the branch's general manager to focus more on the company as a whole.
Right, because
So
it
that's
got
not
bigger.
necessarily
It got bigger
Because for a long
naturally. He
time,
kind of had to step away from
Holostars
doing
was
that.
isolated and not well known among Hololive fans. It led to the feeling that they were not supported, despite the CEO personally taking care of them and supporting them behind the scenes, and even publicly by people like Fubuki. But even with...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's actually true that I think a lot of people, maybe even casual Hololive fans, didn't even know about Holostars.
Fubuki's support, most of the girls didn't even know or downright refused to acknowledge them publicly in fear of the fan backlash. They were an idol-centric agency after all, and even if interacting with males was not exactly a hard-drawn rule, it was still culturally enforced.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, and this still is pretty much true.
Yeah.
Well, we have seen some good improvements to the quality and growth of Holostars, and that the community in general, outside Hololive even, is now aware of the brand. This sentiment of segregation is still there.
Still very much
Indeed,
so there.
The people who hold this sentiment are quite loud. Many of the Stars members have spoken out about how they are even afraid of the Fanbase at times and get worried about
Understandably
potential
so. Understandably so.
members. It's actually something that a lot of them share, especially with certain members that the unicorns and gachis are attracted to. All of this leads to the boys feeling not so welcome in a workplace that should be welcoming.
Yeah, because they literally work in the same workplace, you know.
Despite being accepted into Hololive, there's a feeling that they aren't really part of Hololive.
Yeah, it feels. I mean, it feels almost separated in a sense. Like, in some cases, it honestly, sometimes it feels like they're not even in the same company.
The Nijisanji's co-ed approach has fostered this feeling that the people in the agency are whole. It feels natural.
I think that's something that Nijisanji has done. Like, this is something I will give Nijisanji a plus in. The concept of having, like, co-ed, a co-ed sort of ecosystem, I think, was a really great thing that they've done. But at the same time, I think that it's obviously innately easier because Nijisanji has a different culture, right? When you've kind of built up a completely different sort of culture from Hololive, it's a little easier to do something like this in comparison to Hololive and Holostars because of this sort of idol culture that they've built up. Because I don't think that Niji Sanji necessarily has this sort of same idol culture. I don't think they necessarily have that, or at least to the same extent as Hololive.
That they are able to collab easily like this and be open about it. But in Hololive, even in the EN branch, with the sole exception of Hololive Indonesia, because oddly enough, it's the Southeast Asians that aren't as volatile as the others, this feeling of the members naturally mixing doesn't feel so natural. In fact, the original Holostars JP branch felt like they were honorary indies and Nijisanji members more so than Hololive members. The branding and the culture they've cultivated makes it feel that they are two separate agencies collabing with each other if it happens. That is my personal feeling, but it's...
No, I agree with that. I think just like the culture they've kind of built makes them feel separated. It makes them feel segregated, like they're not even in the same company inherently. It feels like they aren't even in the same company. Sometimes it does feel like, in a sense, it's like a different company collaborating with another company, right? Like, I understand because of the culture, because of the way things are, that maybe Yago felt like he had to make it into like Holostars and like make it a separated thing. Well, I mean, because of I guess because of the culture that they built up and the way that Hololive is, they couldn't necessarily just be like, oh, here's a new generation in Hololive, it's males. I guess you can't really do that, sadly. I think if they were able to do like Niji Sanji, just like, just come out with a male wave, I think that may have helped things better, but I just think that based off of how Hololive is, it's probably a lot harder for them to do that.
Odd to me why I feel that way. Why I feel that Holo-EN feels fragmented, even without Holostars. Hell, Holostars makes that fragmentation feeling a lot more evident. And again, the reason why this separation is there is due to the fanbase.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this further. Why is the fanbase uptight about keeping them segregated?
Because honestly, I do 100% think if there wasn't such a massive like backlash, or there wasn't such a massive like sort of thing about the fans, I don't think it would be like this. I don't think it would.
Well, if you've been in the industry for longer than a month, you'd probably realize that Hololive is much more parasocial heavy than other VTuber agencies out there. It is a company that had female idol branding as its crux. And this branding is the reason. In idol culture, the girls and the boys, because it's not a culture exclusive to any sex, gender, or location, the idol has to be parasocial to the fanbase. Give the impression that they are unavailable for whatever reason, or isn't looking for a relationship right now. Sometimes they even have to lie that they are single, or that they are gay, because for some reason that's entirely acceptable.
Well, oh god. It is. But then I think that also there's that weird thing where it's even like when somebody is like, oh, I'm gay, then it's like people start like fetish, it goes into a weird thing where it's like, then they start getting like fetishized, because like some parasocials, they do shipping, right? And they're really like into that, and then they could even just start like fetishizing them, which is even like kind of worse. But I think it's also sort of the within idol culture also, the thing is that an ideology that we could think of, or an analogy that we could think of, you could view Hololive as like a girl idol group, or like girl idol groups, and Holostars as like boy idol groups. You don't see in idol culture the two like genders intertwining into one group, right? Most of the time, like within sort of idol culture, you don't see them interacting. So if you view it in that sense, then it makes sense in that, in that ideology of like, okay, well, there has to be a split, because within idol culture, there's boy groups and there's girl groups, and they don't come together. They are separated things with separated fan bases.
Sometimes they have to be quiet. It's just the nature of showbiz, and you put males into the mix or females if the idol group is male centric, then problems start coming up. And here's the thing. Despite many people thinking that unicorns are a monolith and that all collectively hate the men just for the sole fact that they are a threat to their most likely non-virgin idols, I have discovered that most people actually do not mind the Holostars members, but they want them to be kept in their own lane, to not be included in the Hololive stuff. Not to say, of course, that those unicorns that do get jealous exists.
That's what my, honestly, I think the main, the majority of Hololive fans that don't watch Holostars, that's how I really do feel like that's what they're like. Like they I don't think they actively like hate Holostars, or they're that, the main like fan base, like, the average Hololive fan isn't like, a fucking psycho, right? They're not like the minority of like crazy people that are gonna go on Twitter and like send hate to the Holostars members. They're sort of like, they just don't look at them, there's kind of like Holostars just, it might as well just be like Hololive is like, Holostars like it's a different company, right? And I'm not a fan of that other company, so I don't watch them and I don't interact with them, and I just, I watch Hololive because I'm in the Hololive community, I'm a Hololive fan. So that's how that's what I kind of think that the average Hololive fans kind of like, that they kind of that don't watch Holostars, are kind of just like, they just don't interact with Holostars. I don't think they hate Holostars or they have anything against Holostars. Just they personally just don't watch Holostars because they're not into Holostars, right? And they don't watch them because maybe they're just not interested in male VTubers, which, to be fair, is valid, right? If you don't like watching male VTubers, that is completely fine. And I just think that I feel like that is sort of what, in my eyes, is like what some of the fan base is like. That's some of like what the fan base's mentality is. It's just they're just not interested in Holostars. Holostars are just something they're just not interested in because they're not interested in male VTubers. They only like watching female VTubers, which, like I said, is valid. That's fair. That is a fair thing to to say. Like, you can watch whatever you want, but if you don't send them hate, if you're not one of those like horrible power social simps that are gonna go and like, send hate to Holostars, then that's fine, right? That's what I view like most of the people.
They just avoid the boys.
Yeah,
don't really
like
care
a neutral
that that's
stance.
what they're in Hololive for. Even if many people scream at them that they're missing out in banger content. Different strokes for different blokes, essentially. People consume VTubing in different ways. But
that's like kind of sus. Different strokes for different brokes.
The reason why people get upset at the inclusion of male VTubers is more so because it changes the relationship dynamics between the VTubers and the agency itself. It challenges the status quo, telling them that there will be changes they may not like. It's an instinctual and
like
very
a change of
human
culture,
reaction, if I have to be honest. It's the fear of change.
Yeah.
Especially since all of these changes were made in a year. When we know that this certain comfort or familiarity may no longer feel so comforting or familiar in the future, it triggers an almost hostile reaction to prevent that from happening. In a way, I get that feeling. Holostars and Hololive being marketed equally and much more involved with each other brings about endless possibilities for content and interactions. But endless possibilities aren't all just fun and sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes, endless possibilities also entail drama, and yabs, and suffering. But on the plus side, the segregation has, in a very roundabout way, actually helped the Holostars culture. This feeling of separation with Holostars and Hololive, while seeming at first that it may be a bad thing, may not entirely be so bad. Of course, the entire Hololive brand right now is trying to unify the two branches and marketing them together, making it so that the Stars members are also part of the marketing of Hololive, unlike prior years. But those years and months of separation has garnered a unique environment of its own, a culture exclusive to Holostars. The struggles of starting and remaining small is that change poses little danger to you. A small ship is much more maneuverable, after all.
Yeah, I think the summit that you can say is that even though Holostars, like in the sense of, I feel like definitely this sort of segregation, I think, has stopped Holostars in a sense from being able to succeed more. I think they've, in their own way, have been able to build up a very dedicated fan base. I think the Holostars fan base are very dedicated fans. Like a very like dedicated fan base. I think they have like a solid like fan base. Let's just say it like this, right? And obviously in terms of like, if because it's a part of Hololive, we can definitely say, okay, yeah, Holostars maybe they aren't doing like as good as you would think they would be doing, or if you compare them to Niji Sanji, yeah, they're not doing like as good as Niji Sanji. But I mean, in terms of like just the greater like VTubers just in general, they're doing fine, right? And also we have to think about like this. Also, the other hurdle of male VTubing. We can look at Holostars in the whole grand scheme of VTubing, right? And say, oh, well, there's other agencies, small agencies, and maybe some of those members actually found more success than some of the Holostars members. But once again, we need to say that, like, it is harder to be a male VTuber. In this industry, it is harder. And I think just in terms of, like, male VTubing, they are successful. I think they are fine. And I think I think as male VTubing culture's changing, because I think we need to look at it from this perspective also. I think there has also just been a change in just the male VTuber sphere in general. I think that just the whole Luxium boom, you know, in even indie VTubers, indie male VTubers blowing up, you know, like Kenji, Shoto, some of these like male VTubers who are becoming massive. I think it's overall changing the male VTuber culture, and I think that is why we are starting to see Holostars EN succeeding. Because I just think that the male VTubing culture in general is changing, and I think that people are starting to look at male VTubers more, and that the fan base of male VTubers is getting bigger, and it's getting better. The environment's getting better for male VTubers, and I do see potentially male VTubing growing even more. I don't know. I don't think it will ever reach the point of female VTubing, but I do think that there's an upward trajectory for male VTubing in general, in a general sense. I think that male VTubing is in a lot better place than it was, let's just say, like, you know, 2 years ago.
Only upwards from here on out. The boys have their own inside jokes, develop their own memes. Holostars is different. Even beyond the sex and the gender,
But kind of made their own
and the
culture.
branding of the memes, fundamentally, Holostars is not Hololive. Holostars is Holostars. They are unique, a separate community within the same brand and agency.
Just
And
true.
I think at the end of the day, that's what Iago wanted. Or perhaps not. Perhaps it was an accident that he didn't intend for this to happen. But it still seems good for the long term. If you've paid attention for the finances and the reports and the politics and the interviews around VTuber agencies, and please, I highly suggest you do so if you're interested in learning more about how companies work.
Oh god,
There are
that's
interesting
a
facts in
rabbit
there
hole
that
I don't know
may
if I
or
want
may
to go
not surprise
down.
you. Like the fact that many people think Hololive makes more money than Nijisanji or V Shoujo, when in
Cover Corp's finances.
reality, Nijisanji was always more profitable, even during Hololive.
So what is their cost of goods sold, sales, revenue, sales growth?
Go Shoujo, when in reality, like the fact that many people
Finances.
think Hololive makes more money than Nijisanji or V Shoujo, when in reality, Nijisanji was always more profitable, even during
Oh wow.
Hololive's golden era. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to listen to Hololive's long-term goals in the future. Covercorp has stated that they have the intention of being an IP holder company more so than a VTuber company.
Damn.
They want to be like Disney.
Jeez.
Someone who owns really valuable IPs and is able to use them to create mini medias like
Wow.
video games, shows, merchandising, and manga. Hell, even potentially let other studios use them with certain conditions. A VTuber equivalent of Sanrio, of Shonen Jump, of CD Projekt Red, of Disney. They want to branch out far beyond VTubing. And they've already even started that endeavor. They want to go beyond just VTubing. And with this in mind, it only makes sense that Holostars has been pushed by Covercorp more fiercely than ever.
Because they want to, because they want to branch out, obviously, appeal to new audiences, do new things, you know, that make like an empire in that sense.
Long-term benefits. Hololive fans won't have to cannibalize on each other with Holostars fans. They appeal to different fan bases and demographics. They can appeal to as many markets as they can.
Yeah.
It's a plan that has long-term benefits with some short-term pains. They can't just pigeonhole themselves into majorly catering to the male fan bases. They can't just focus on VTubers. They have to think further. And with all that information in mind, does it not make sense that they should and is promoting Holostars in the same way they are now? Ignoring one's personal biases and feelings of the matter, I think this is the best way to go forward.
Yeah.
Maybe a few details and small things that could have been tweaked, but the major strokes seem optimal. All in all, it's a vision that I can genuinely believe in. It makes me confident, makes me feel proud that despite my frequent ventures outside the Hololive community, that although I am developing and keep developing a liking towards certain indie communities, small corpos, Twitch VTubers, and a few Nijisanji members, Hololive is the place I can always go back to and call home. I may not always like their decision. I've shat on them more than enough in the past. My overall opinion
no one's perfect, right?
Is still quite positive. Until the next yab, of course. Like, if Picora graduates, I will literally be inconsolably upset. I will literally drop. In any case, that's really all I had to say for this long overdue review of Holostars' current state. If you liked what you saw, do leave a like. And
I think he made a really interesting point here, is that I think, like I was saying at the beginning, is I think that why small agencies really don't seem to have male talents is because I think it is more of a marathon, in the sense of like, I think investing in male VTubers is more of a longer term goal and a longer term thing than for female VTubers to have in your system, right? But yeah, I a good video from Nasagi. Yeah, I definitely agree with all of the points that Nasagi was saying. I do definitely agree that it feels like Holostars has kind of built up their own sort of like culture, their own sort of ecosystem, right? Because it does feel in a sense like separated in that sense, and I do definitely think that Holostars is going in the right direction, and they seem to really be pushing Armus. Armus was really pushed really like greatly by Cover, and I was really happy to see that. I just hope that they continue to do that. I hope that they can try. I hope what I want to see, right, is if they really want to do this and to push Holostars more, they need to push the JP branch. I want to see a new Holostars JP gen, and to really push that gen. Really push them and get that Holostars JP traction going, because I see this traction as potential in Holostars EN, but I don't know about JP. I feel like JP is kind of stagnated a bit. Like I don't know if I see that potential in JP as much as I do in EN, and I really hope that they can try and push Holostars JP a bit more, or they could potentially in the future maybe have a new Holostars JP gen and really push them as well and advertise them and get some more traction, like get pump some life back into Holostars. Not saying that Holostars is like in a bad place or anything, but I just feel like Holostars EN, the trajectory they're going in, is like in a higher trajectory in Holostars JP, and I just hope that some of that can go into Holostars JP as well. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this subject. What do you guys think of the state of Holostars? Are you personally a Holostars fan? Do you watch Holostars and Hololive? Are you somebody who just watches Hololive, or are you someone that just watches Holostars? I dabble in both. I like both, you know, but anyway, so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Did not enjoy this video, please consider like and subscribe and enjoy the channel. And if you would like to help me in reach my goal of hitting 10k subscribers, we are close to hitting 10 subscribers. Hitting that subscribe button does help me out a lot. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.